So good evening and welcome. Thank you for attending the regular council meeting of Monday, March 10th. I'm going to turn off my microphone. March 10th of 2025, in person and online. So may the spring weather continue. It certainly was beautiful today. Please remember that this coming Saturday is St. Patrick's Parade. Please take a look on the town's calendar and on the local restaurant and bars' respective social media and web pages for other events leading up to Saturdays. There will be a family event here at the community center, followed by the parade from 2 p.m. until 4 p.m., where children and adults can enjoy Irish dancing and music and have your photo taken with the Queen and her court. Warm beverages and treats will also be served. More than 100 entries this year, once again. This is sure to be a wonderful parade. Hopefully the weather will hold, 12 degrees and cloudy, whereas Montreal the next day may have a rainy parade with a few more degrees. I remind you that this parade is put on by a volunteer board of executives for once again organizing this parade. I'd like to thank them, and as they continue to raise funds for a valuable cause, this is for 2 neonatal units for the New Vaudreuil-Soulanges Hospital. Also, this past few weeks, on Saturday, February 22nd of 2025, I held a workshop on Indigenous land acknowledgements with the accompaniment of Eric Cardinal and the Hudson Arts and Culture Council, and also with Maylin Freeman from the Hudson School Play. There were more than 60 people in attendance. This was held at the Cultural Hub in Como, and it was a lovely opportunity to hear 2 elders from our region. So one elder from across the way, Brenda Etienne from Ganastagi, and Joe Diom from Ganawagi. So both had some interesting perspectives to share, their immediate experience of what we call the Ganastagi resistance or the Aucun crisis, and also on ways that different people can participate in truth and reconciliation, starting with attending events, informing yourselves. There's some very good books out there, some very good podcasts and speakers. So if there's any interest on your part to look into this, there's some really good writings, such as Myth and Realities is an edition that's put out by La Commission des Droits de la Personne et de la Jeunesse that is free online in both languages, but also a Call to Consciousness, which is a work put on by a Mohawk from Akwesasne. With regards to the town's branding, the town and an internal committee composed of councillors and staff have been working with a branding consultant for the redesign of the town logo. This is going well. The public will be solicited in mid-April to vote on a choice of 2 logos that will have been presented to council at the end of this month, where the public will be called to give their opinion, so to select one, and the official launch will be sometime around the end of May. Much will be happening in May, as for example, the Seniors Committee is working on 2 events in May. The Volunteer Recognition Evening on May 2nd from 5 to 7, and the Community Shredding event scheduled to take place on Saturday, May 24th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. in the parking lot here at the Community Center. Tomorrow evening, on March 11th, will be the public consultation for the preliminary version of the conservation plan. So if you haven't already done so, please sign up online or through the town's main phone line. This event is in person with the option of also attending virtually, and also this event will be recorded for future reading or looking into it. With regards to the advancement in the cultural policy, it is coming along, where the Cultural Policy Committee met on Thursday, February 27th of 2025 to review the draft cultural policy. So we're at step 5 of a 6-step process. Since that evening, the Hudson Arts and Culture Council, of which most members are part of the Cultural Policy Committee, have been meeting regularly to review and continue to improve the wording and completeness of the vision, values, and guiding principles of this policy. The work is progressing well, and I hope will generate a cultural policy framework ready for presentation to Council and for adoption before the summer period. So without further ado, we will proceed with this evening's agenda. So adoption of the agenda, item 1.1. I will need a mover and a seconder for the agenda of the regular council meeting of this evening, March 10th of 2025, to be hereby adopted as submitted. So to my left, I have Mark Gray, seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hands. There are none. En français.
1.1, adoption de l'ordre du jour. Donc, que l'ordre du jour de la séance ordinaire du Conseil du 10 mars soit adopté tel que soumis.
Merci. So, section 2, confirmation of minutes. Item 2.1, confirmation of the February 2025 regular meeting minutes. This resolution is that the minutes of the council meeting held on February 3rd of 2025 be and is hereby approved as submitted. En français.
2.1, adoption du procès-verbal de la séance ordinaire de février 2025. Donc, cette résolution vise à ce que le procès-verbal de la séance ordinaire du 3 février 2025 soit approuvé par les présentes tel que soumis.
Merci. Are there any comments or requests for changes? There is one. Please go ahead.
Just for clarification, and thank you, Melissa, for making the inclusion of the clarification. Yes, relative to the Wyman or Toi d'abord resolution last time. My question for clarification is that not only did I want to see on the minutes that, you know, I and or anyone else had been registered as voting against, but I submitted an explanation as to the reasons for, and I don't see that included. And in one of my past lives, those were always included, and I'm wondering, do we not do that here?
No, the minutes are intended for recording the council's decisions, but not individuals' justification. But the paper you gave me, it was tabled on the file of the last month's sitting, so it's in the archives.
Okay, all right. Thank you.
Bon. Are there any other questions or comments? No. Do I have a mover to my left? Mark Gray, supported by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? There are none. It is carried unanimously. So now opening the first question period. I remind you that we will be alternating between the room and online. There are 12 participants online. I know that there had been a question as to who is online. Sometimes it's just initials, sometimes it's a first name, so I don't always know the full list. You're welcome to come and take a look if you want.
May I?
Yeah, sure.
I did not realize that we actually had to register with Laura and our technical people here so that we could all see that.
If you want to come and see it, you can see it. I have it because I give, je cède la parole, right? I give the microphone, but there's no reason why you wouldn't be able to see it, but I am not the Zoom host, so I can't add or subtract people.
And thank you for that, and I understand that now that they've helped me understand it, and Laura has already responded. So for the next time, if any of us want to see who's online with your laptops,
but you're welcome to
check
come.
with Laura, and she'll give you the access to this.
But if you want to see who's on there tonight, you can.
It's okay.
Right?
All right. Thank you.
All right. Very good. So I see a person on in the room, and no hands are up. So please go ahead.
Good evening, everyone. Steve Farrell, 86 Butternut. I'd like to know why have there not been any proper bank reconciliations done in the last 2.5 years?
Says Steve Farrell.
Says the other report. That was tabled after the last council meeting, so I didn't have a chance for any questions.
What was tabled
It's one
at
of-
the council meeting?
It's one of the material discrepancies in internal control. It's a very key control,
Agreed.
as I'm sure Martin understands.
Agreed. So
Because-
as you know, in January, we were, at the end of the month, we were without a treasurer. And after that, it was our personnel in the town who filled in essentially that position. We were assured that internal controls were being done and that the essentials were being taken care of. And it's only when Martin took back control of the seat that with the auditor's review that we saw the level of or lack of internal controls.
So during the 2023 year, there were no proper bank reconciliations. So how could you have actually started the year 24 with a proper
So
balance?
the auditor came on board in September and has started with 2023, went through each month, closed the months, and started 2024 as well while they were at it. So all of that work has been caught up as of now.
Oh, I understand that, yes, but all through the 23 year and the 24 year before
Correct.
the auditors came in, you didn't know what the bank position was.
I was slowly hearing about it, say October, November, that things were worse than we had anticipated.
Okay. Another significant problem was that no GST or QST returns have been filed with the government for 2.5 years. That's cash in the waiting.
Agreed.
And unfortunately, I mean, I've been asking the same question over the last 2.5 years, and Martin's the one who's been answering it, that all the internal controls are in existence, even though we don't have a treasurer, and someone else is taking over responsibility on the interim finance. And unfortunately, this is a terrible report from the auditors.
Agreed.
And have these issues been addressed, and are they all corrected?
They have been addressed. As I mentioned when the auditor was here, the auditor made sure that the 2023 GST, PST reports were filed on the
Right.
spot so that we
Right.
did not lose the 3-year prescription period.
Exactly.
And also, at this point, we are ready with the treasurer, the new treasurer, to be able to catch up on the ones for 2024. And as you know, the audit for 2024 should be starting soon.
Exactly. So all these points have been corrected for 24, and
Correct.
they won't,
The only
they will
item
not
that will
reappear.
not be corrected for 2024 is that requirement to have that work done in terms of assessing the level of asbestos and other contaminants in property belonging to the town, whether it is land or buildings, and that is something that takes many more months to put into place. So that is the one remaining item that will be on our letter for this year.
And who is authorized to approve all the journal entries for the general ledger?
There should be a double check version, and usually it is the person in the team, so there's 4 in the treasury, and then the person to double check would be the treasurer. So that was not done in 2023.
So his signature nor anyone else's signature as interim treasurer was evidenced on the journal entries. So unauthorized entries could have been made, and that's what the auditors are saying.
And that's what they went through, and they assured us that all was fine and balanced, and they went meticulously through every month in 2023. And they will do the same work for 2024.
Okay. So
It
everything's
is the
correct
best
now?
we could do with the situation that we had.
Okay, fine.
Thank you. Are there any questions online? There are none. Please come to the microphone.
Hello, good evening.
Hello, Bernard.
As some of you may know, I represent the Hudson Chamber Music Series, and I want to take this chance to thank the town for the support. Lower it down? Okay. Is that better? Oh, yes. Okay. So I'll repeat that. I represent the Hudson Chamber Music Series, which has been supported by the town for many, many years. So I just want to say that we're really appreciated all the efforts that
Thank you,
it's
Bernard.
for that support. The second thing is we have a concert for April 6th. That will be one day before your next council meeting. It will be at St. James.
Aw,
In
the
the
big
large
hall?
hall. The large hall was not damaged by the fire last April 14th. The piano was not affected by any water. It was dry. And so the piano's in good condition. The hall has all the chairs that we need, and we will have a chamber music trio they've just named themselves the Callista Trio. So that will involve the piano, plus a cellist and a violinist. And that's for April 6th on Sunday afternoon.
Thank you, Bernard.
One more thing, we're also working on a June 1st concert, and this is a result of the international competition in Montreal, short form is CMIM. They have vocalists this year, and these vocalists will be vocalists who are trying to get into get an opera, make their way into an opera career. So they promised us 3 vocalists for that Sunday afternoon on June 1st. and I have no questions.
Bernard, how many years has the chamber music group been in activity?
I've supported it since 2006, but the chamber music series was started in the mid-'80s by Patricia Carriage and Ray Carriage at that time. Patricia had contacts with McGill University, and there would be one musician, and they would do a Sunday concert, and eventually that grew into up to 4 concerts a year. We haven't been able to establish that since COVID.
So 40 years of history, that's pretty remarkable.
Yes, in fact, I had an email from Pat Carriage not too long ago. She's intending to write a little history of all of that.
I think that would be wonderful.
Yeah.
We were talking about this when we were looking at the cultural policy on how deep and how long the culture, the very distinctive culture in Hudson has been happening. So.
Well, the musicians we get are the musicians that could be playing in Salle Bourgie, for example, and other classical venues in Montreal. So these are not by-night musicians. These are really well-established
We're very, very
musicians.
fortunate. Thank you so much.
So that's it.
I appreciate your information. Are there any other questions in the room? Please come ahead to the microphone. Are there any other questions?
Hi, I'm Fausto Sabatino. I just wanted to say hi to all of you and thank you for considering the Hudson Creative Hub, as I am a member of the Hudson Creative Hub. And that's all I wanted to say. Thanks.
Oh, yes, we're very fortunate to have the hub amongst us, so thank you for that. I appreciate it. All right, so there are no questions online. I will carry on with the rest of the agenda. So Section 3, Urban Planning and Environment, Item 3.1, 461 Lakeview, SPAPE, Major Renovations. Do you want to read that?
Sure. Whereas a permit request was received for major renovation works, whereas bylaw number 571 concerning site planning and architectural integration programs, or the SPAPE, indicates objectives and criteria to fulfill for this type of permit application, whereas the Town Planning Advisory Committee's unanimous recommendation to refuse the SPAPE in support of the permit request, whereas the following criteria are not met to comply with the building's specific architectural characteristics during the work, along with its specific and overall characteristics, the use of materials of equal or greater quality when material is replaced, to prioritize work that aims to return the building to its original character, and to prioritize work that aims to return it to its original state if renovations have already altered the building's original character. So this resolution is to refuse the SPAPE permit request for 461 Lakeview.
3.1, 461 Lakeview, PIIA, rénovation majeure. Considérant qu'une demande de permis a été reçue pour des travaux de rénovation majeure au 461 Lakeview, considérant que le règlement 571 sur les plans d'implantation et d'intégration architecturale indique des objectifs et critères à respecter pour une demande de ce type, considérant la recommandation unanime du comité consultatif d'urbanisme de refuser le PIA relatif à la demande de permis, considérant que les critères suivants ne sont pas remplis, soit de respecter les caractéristiques propres à l'architecture du bâtiment ainsi que ses caractéristiques particulières et d'ensemble, l'utilisation d'un matériau de qualité égale ou supérieure lors du remplacement d'un matériau, privilégier des travaux qui visent à redonner au bâtiment son caractère d'origine et privilégier des travaux visant le retour à l'état original si des rénovations ont déjà altéré le caractère original du bâtiment. Donc, cette résolution a pour but de refuser le PIA relatif à la demande de permis.
Merci. Did you want to give some? You weren't at the meeting. So, Council did review and I don't know if the owner is in the room, that's why I'm going to give a little bit of an intro on this. The president of the Town Planning Advisory Committee is away today, so there was a review of that file and the discussions that were had around the table. So it is felt that that building and the character, the arts and craft character of that home are very key in terms of the timing of the history and the heritage, and it is excellent example of the arts and crafts in our region. And the intervention that has been proposed for this building that actually went through a fire, I believe, in August, is they're proposing to put a very wide and very large dormer on the top of the roof, and it is felt that it is out of scale with the rest of the building, but also that the material that is proposed is not in keeping with the history and the heritage of the quality of this building. So I invite the owners, if you're listening this evening or if you're listening the recording later, to contact Peter Mate, who will be back from holiday in a few days, and to ask to have a meeting with him so that he can share any more details if there are some that I have missed, but this is essentially the gist of what we understood was the holdback. So we do invite you to resubmit, but consider that the actual scale and perhaps to subdivide that dormer at the top, which we understand is to create more space in the second floor, but also to reconsider the type of stucco and maybe go with a stucco that is more in keeping with the historical siding. Is there a mover and a proposer? So Mark Gray, seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any oppositions to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 3.2, awarding of contract AO 2025-08-U by invitation, awarding of contract AO 2025-08-U. I'm guessing it's a double.
Yeah.
Yes, Melissa? So by invitation, coaching, concordance of plan and urban planning bylaws. Whereas the town wishes to be assisted in the SADR 3, so this is in French, le schéma d'aménagement et de développement régional?
Révisé.
Révisé, merci. Third edition, concordance process. So this is the master plan at the regional level. Whereas a public call for tender was issued by invitation, whereas the tender documents provided for a bid weighting and evaluation system in which each bidder could get a total score of 100%, the lowest conforming bidder being the one with the highest final score based on a formula prescribed by law. Whereas the offer submitted by Paris Plus Associates, Inc. received the highest point score, this resolution is to award to Paris Plus Associés, Inc., lowest compliant bidder, the contract for the assistance for the concordance of the SADR 3 for an amount of $27,315.50 before taxes.
3.2, octroi de contrat AO 2025-8U sur invitation pour de l'accompagnement pour la concordance du plan et des règlements d'urbanisme. Donc, considérant que la Ville désire se faire accompagner dans le processus de concordance au SADR 3, donc le schéma d'aménagement de développement révisé, troisième génération, considérant qu'un appel d'offres a été lancé sur invitation, considérant que les documents de l'appel d'offres prévoyaient un système de pondération et d'évaluation des soumissions dans lequel chaque soumissionnaire pouvait obtenir une note totale de 100%, le soumissionnaire conforme étant celui ayant obtenu la note finale la plus élevée selon une formule prescrite par la loi. Considérant que l'offre soumise par la firme Paris Plus Associés Inc. a reçu le pointage le plus élevé, la résolution vise à octroyer à Paris Plus Associés, le plus bas soumissionnaire conforme, le contrat du mandat d'accompagnement pour la concordance au SADR 3 pour un montant de 27 315,50 avant taxes.
It was my husband's phone. I heard it. So there were four firms that were called in invitation. One of them had a major irregularity in his submittals, so was not retained, and the other one's grade or amount was below 70%, which was the passing grade to be retained. So two made it through, and the lowest bidder, as you've heard, is Paris Plus et Associés. These are the same firm that we worked with for the RCI, le Règlement de Contrôle Intérimaire. Do I have a mover and a proposer? Doug Smith, supported by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? There are none. It is carried unanimously. So this is a great step. This is really, we need to be doing this. We had hoped to get to this sooner. We will also eventually have to do a conformity to the PMAD, which will be coming soon. I was at the CMM today for that commission. The public consultation process is complete on this, so we were receiving the report on all of the comments that were received, so 108 memoirs, I believe, were received and something like 4,600 lines of comments. But all this to say that the aim of the CMM is to adopt the second version of the PMAD by June this year. And then they have up to 120 days, the ministry, and yeah, it is just the ministry, to review the conformity of the PMAD. There's already been a pre-evaluation done of the first draft and the second draft, so they don't expect that it will take a full 120 days, but it's to say that once that comes into play, then all of the MRCs of the Greater Montreal area, there are 14, will have to then conform to the new PMAD, and once their schema, so the one we're complying to now, are looking to comply to now, we will have to do a second wave of conformity. I see Jim looking at me as he's trying to figure it out, but we're going to go through years and years of conformity and waves, and we essentially have 2 years to conform to all of these different levels. It's very complicated. So item 3.3, 98 Cameron Park fees, whereas under section 535 to 541 of the zoning bylaw in force, redevelopment projects are subject to the contribution for the purposes of parks, playgrounds, and natural spaces. This resolution is that the owner of the lot 6152891 of the Cadastre of Quebec shall pay as a contribution for the purposes of parks, playgrounds, and natural spaces an amount of $32,640, representing 10% of the standardized value of the lot as part of the redevelopment project. That this money be deposited in a special fund dedicated to the establishment, maintenance, and improvement of parks and playgrounds and the preservation of natural areas on the town's territory. So this is a measure that has come into force since we've released the RCI regulations, and the new owners of this property are sitting next to you, Jim, and they are here with us today. En français.
3.3, 98 Cameron, frais de parc. Considérant qu'en vertu des articles 535 à 541 du règlement de zonage en vigueur, les projets de redéveloppement sont assujettis à la contribution pour fin de parc, terrain de jeu et espaces verts, et espaces naturels plutôt. Cette résolution a pour but à ce que le propriétaire du lot 6152891 du cadastre du Québec doit verser en guise de contribution pour fin de parc, terrain de jeu et espaces naturels une somme de 32 640 $, soit 10 % de la valeur uniformisée du terrain dans le cadre du projet de redéveloppement, et que cet argent soit déposé dans le fonds de parc dédié à l'établissement, au maintien et à l'amélioration des parcs et terrains de jeu et à la préservation d'espaces naturels sur le territoire de la ville.
Merci. Do I have a mover to my right? Doug Smith, seconded by Reed Thompson. Sorry, Darren, I didn't see your hand. Next time, I'll look further. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously, so thank you. And looking forward to working with you. I understand that the town has met with you to see if you were interested in doing some co-design, looking at different ways of using that lot. So we look forward to that work with you. Thank you. Item 3.4, awarding of contract by mutual agreement, service contract for permit and inspection. Whereas the shortage of manpower in the field of urban planning and the lack of personnel within the urban planning division. Whereas the high number of permit applications and requests received by the urban planning division, and that assistance is necessary to ensure the quality of services provided to citizens. This resolution is to award to Appur Créatif a contract for personal loan for permit issuance and inspection at a rate of $86 per hour for a maximum amount of $25,000 before taxes. En français.
3.4, octroi de contrat de gré à gré, contrat de service pour permis et inspection. Considérant la pénurie de main-d'œuvre dans le domaine de l'urbanisme et le manque de personnel au sein de la division de l'urbanisme, considérant le nombre élevé de demandes de permis et de requêtes reçues par la division d'urbanisme et que de l'aide est nécessaire afin d'assurer une prestation de services de qualité aux citoyens, cette résolution vise à octroyer à la firme APPROBATION Créatif un contrat de prêt de personnel pour des services d'émission de permis et d'inspection à un taux de 86 de l'heure pour un montant maximal de 25 000 avant taxe.
Merci. Do I have a mover to my left, far left? Darren Legault, seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 3.5, authorization to apply urban planning regulations designation update. Whereas the service contract to APPROBATION Créatif for resource in urban planning, so the resolution we just adopted. This next resolution is to appoint Luc Munier, Ève Levac-Noiseux, Jordan Larabie, Darwin Suffrard, Sébastien Marchand, Alexandre Lamarche, Sacha Ricard, Sami Kaanish, and Ariadna Cepeda as the authority having jurisdiction.
3.5, autorisation d'application des règlements d'urbanisme, mise à jour des désignations. Donc, considérant la résolution par laquelle la Ville a octroyé un contrat de service à la firme APPROBATION Créatif pour une ressource en urbanisme, cette résolution a pour but de nommer Luc Munier, Ève Levac-Noiseux, Jordan Larabie, Darwin Suffrard, Sébastien Marchand, Alexandre Lamarche, Sacha Ricard, Sami Kaanish et Ariadna Cepeda à titre de fonctionnaires désignés.
Do we have a proposer to my left? Darren Legault, seconded to my right? Or to my, yes? Doug Smith. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 3.6, tabling of TPAC's minutes, January of 2025. Members of council take note of the tabling of the Town Planning Advisory Committee minutes.
3.6, dépôt du procès-verbal du CCU de janvier 2025. Donc, les membres du Conseil prennent acte du dépôt du procès-verbal du Comité consultatif d'urbanisme.
Merci. Item 3.7, tabling of the monthly report for permits issued in January of 2025. Members of council take note of the tabling of the monthly report for permits issued by the Urban Planning Department.
3.7, dépôt du rapport mensuel des permis émis, janvier 2025. Les membres du Conseil prennent acte du dépôt du rapport mensuel des permis émis du service de l'urbanisme.
Merci. Section 4, Administration and Finance, Item 4.1, Approval of Disbursements, February of 2025. This resolution is to approve the following disbursements as of February 20th of 2025 as presented. For a subtotal of $934,858.94 with two payrolls. First one at payroll number 2 for the year of $132,201.54. Payroll number 3 is $126,295.64 with a total of accounts paid of $1,193,356.12.
4.1, approbation des paiements, février 2025. Donc, cette résolution a pour but d'approuver le paiement des comptes au 20 février 2025 tel que présenté, soit un sous-total des paiements de 934 858,94 montant auquel s'ajoutent 2 périodes de paye pour un total des comptes payés à 1 193 356,12.
Merci. Do I have a mover to my right? Do I have a mover to my left? Mark Gray, seconded by Reed Thompson. Thank you. Do I have any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 4.2, renewal of a professional services contract by mutual agreement, financial consultation mandate. Whereas the town gave a mentoring and coaching mandate to consultant Serge Courchen to support the former Director of Finance hired in September of 2024, and that the expense was limited to $36,000. Whereas the town continued its collaboration with consultant Serge Courchaine to assist with various tasks and that the expenditure was limited to $35,000. This resolution is to continue using the services of Mr. Serge Courchaine, financial consultant, as per the hourly rate agreement, and to approve the payment of fees for the services of Mr. Courchaine for an additional maximum amount of $25,000 before taxes.
4.2, renouvellement de contrat de gré à gré pour services professionnels, mandat de consultation en finance. Considérant la résolution par laquelle la Ville a donné un mandat de mentorat et d'accompagnement au consultant Serge Courchaine afin qu'il soutienne l'ancien directeur des finances embauché en septembre 2024 et que la dépense était limitée à 36 000 $, considérant la résolution par laquelle la Ville a poursuivi sa collaboration avec le consultant Serge Courchaine afin qu'il l'assiste dans diverses tâches et que la dépense était limitée à 35 000 $, la résolution vise à poursuivre avec les services de M. Serge Courchaine, consultant en finance selon l'entente à taux horaire, et d'approuver le paiement des frais pour les services de M. Courchaine pour un montant additionnel d'un maximum de 25 000 $ avant taxe.
Merci beaucoup. Do I have a proposer to my right? There are none. Do I have a proposer to my left? Reed Thompson, supported by, is it Darren's hand that is up? So Darren Legault. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 4.3, approval of disbursements, legal fees. Whereas Council authorized the legal proceedings in Superior Court file number 760-17-004435-163, whereas the trial was held in December of 2024, whereas the invoices received for trial preparation and court representation, whereas the Fonds d'assurance des municipalités du Québec covers 50% of these legal fees, this resolution is to approve payment of invoices 467425 and 463479, totaling $46,077.09 to the firm Dunton Rainville.
4.3, approbation de paiement, frais juridiques. Considérant la résolution par laquelle le Conseil autorisait les procédures judiciaires dans le dossier de la Cour supérieure 760 17 00 44 35 163, considérant que le procès s'est tenu en décembre 2024, considérant la facturation reçue visant la préparation au procès et la représentation devant la Cour, considérant que le Fonds d'assurance des municipalités du Québec assume 50% de ses frais juridiques, la résolution vise à approuver le paiement des factures 46 74 25 et 46 34 79, totalisant 46 077 et 9 sous à la firme Dunton Rainville.
Merci. Do I have a mover to my right?
Clarification, so that I understand. So the Fonds d'assurance des municipalités du Québec covers 50% of these fees, so $46,000. Are we paying $23,000 or this bill?
This is our town. This is the town's amount.
Bill was $92,000.
Correct. C'est pour une année? Ou c'est juste pour décembre?
C'est juste novembre-décembre.
Juste novembre et décembre, so it's for 2 months. As soon as a court case ends up in court, there's preparation and then there's representation. Yes. Do I have a mover to my left? Mark Gray, seconded by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? It is approved by majority. Item 4.4, amendment to Resolution R 2025-02-28, write-off of receivables of less than $5. So we had this resolution last month, and where we asked to have it corrected were the amounts that were below zero, so between -5 and 0 be struck to 0. And there was a comment to, if we owe money, we should be paying them money, even if it's just a few cents or a few dollars. We've checked with, our consultant in finance has checked with standard practices in other municipalities and what is done, and this is a person who teaches finances at the municipal level, and he confirmed that the original resolution was correct. So we are bringing back the original resolution. Whereas Resolution R 2025-02-28 adopted at the council meeting of February 3rd of 2025, whereas the write-off as executed on January 25th of 2025 is shown in the Journal of Radiation des Effets à Recevoir, this resolution is to amend Resolution R 2025-02-28 so that the first paragraph now reads as follows. Whereas it would not be cost-effective nor efficient to devote resources to collect amounts of less than $5 and greater than minus $5.
4.4, modification à la résolution R 2025-02-28, radiation de recevables de moins de 5 $, considérant la résolution R 2025-02-28 adoptée à la dernière séance du Conseil, soit celle du 3 février 2025, considérant que la radiation telle qu'effectuée le 25 janvier est démontrée au journal de radiation des effets à recevoir, la présente résolution a pour but de modifier la résolution R 2025-02-28 afin que le premier paragraphe se lise désormais comme suit, soit considérant qu'il ne serait pas économique ni efficace de consacrer des ressources pour collecter des montants de moins de 5 $ et plus grands que moins 5 $.
Merci. Do I have a mover to my right? Moved by Doug Smith, supported by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? There is. It is carried by majority. Item 4.5, tabling action plan to implement CMQ recommendations. The members of council take note of the tabling of the action plan to implement CMQ recommendations.
4.5, dépôt du plan d'action pour la mise en œuvre des recommandations de la CMQ. Donc, les membres du Conseil prennent acte du dépôt du plan d'action pour la mise en œuvre des recommandations de la CMQ.
So this action plan was reviewed by Serge Courchaine, was presented to council. Comments were given, adjustments were made. Once it's tabled, it becomes public material, so you're welcome to ask for it through the town's clerk. Et
le MAMACH aussi a participé à la vérification.
Et le MAMACH, so the Ministry of Housing also participated in comments given to the action plan. So if that's an item that interests you, est-ce qu'on pourrait le mettre en ligne, Martin, étant donné qu'il est public?
On va parler avec
La greffière? Notre
la greffière puis la CMQ aussi.
Est-ce que notre greffière va le vérifier? Oui.
Bien
Oui,
sûr.
merci. C'est gentil. Section 5, Town Clerk. Item 5.1, authorization to sign agreement to transfer of lot 6320509 of the Cadastre of Quebec Registration Division of Vaudreuil. Whereas the signature of an agreement relating to municipal works concerning the Willowbrook Housing Development Phase 1, whereas the certificate of final acceptance of work signed by the main parties involved, including the town's public work director on December 9th of 2024, whereas in addition to the specified transfers, the developer wishes to make a donation to the town of lot 6320509 of the Cadastre of Quebec, which is characterized as a wetland. Whereas all professional fees related to this project are to be paid by the developer, this resolution is to accept the transfer free of charge of lot 6320509 of the Cadastre of Quebec Registration Division of Vaudreuil, characterized as a wetland, and to authorize the town clerk to sign for and in the name of the town any deed of transfer to accept the transfer of lot 6320509 of the Cadastre of Quebec Registration Division of Vaudreuil, as well as all documents deemed useful and necessary to give full effect to the present resolution. En français.
5.1, autorisation de signature, acceptation de la cession du lot 6-320-509 du Cadastre du Québec, circonscription foncière de Vaudreuil. Considérant l'entente relative à des travaux municipaux concernant le développement domiciliaire Willowbrook phase 1, considérant le certificat de réception définitive des ouvrages signé par les intervenants principaux, notamment par le directeur des travaux publics de la Ville le 9 décembre 2024, considérant qu'en plus des sessions prévues, le promoteur souhaite faire cession à titre gratuit à la Ville du lot 6-320-509, qui est caractérisé de milieu humide, Considérant que tous les honoraires professionnels qui en découlent sont à la charge du promoteur, la résolution vise à accepter la cession à titre gratuit du lot 6-320-509, caractérisé à titre de milieu humide, et d'autoriser la greffière à signer pour et au nom de la Ville tout acte de cession visant à accepter la cession du lot 6-320-509, ainsi que tout document jugé utile et nécessaire afin de donner plein effet à la présente résolution.
Merci. Do I have a mover to my left? Mark Gray, seconded by Reed Thompson. Yeah, go ahead.
Does this have any bearing on what the developer would need to
You should
contribute?
use your microphone if you want people to hear you.
Does this have any bearing on the developer's requirement for Phase 2 relative to what they have to give to the town? So this is purely a gift?
It's a
Because
gift.
there's really no such thing.
Well, in this case, it's a wetland. But no, as far, looking at Martin, so Martin is confirming that there's no bearing. It does not reduce what he has to provide in Phase 2,
Or 3, going forward.
if he wanted to do a third phase.
Cette partie devait être développée en phase 2, mais considérant
Non,
le-
il est
la-
supposé d'être développé en phase 1.
en phase 1.
Oui, sur léger. C'est un petit terrain sur léger.
Non, mais c'est l'autre partie aussi. Je pense qu'il y a 2 parties là, qui étaient touchées, ou juste la première.
Non, c'est sur léger.
Ah, juste la première. Bon, ben, c'est un... Ah, OK, je pensais que c'était la grande partie. C'est la petite partie. Fait que, effectivement, il ne peut pas développer. C'est une partie toute petite en milieu humide.
So Martin's confirming that this is a part that he can't develop. And Doug's question is a good one to see whether he will try, the developer will try to reduce his 10% or anything that he might. But he was already developing everything that he needed to. The park that he owes the town still is the 10%. That park is not reducing in size, and it is protected by the decree by the Ministry of Culture anyway. So the wetland is protected, and the archaeological site is also protected. So it doesn't change his footprint of development. All right. So it was Mark and Reed, I believe. C'est ça? Are there any objections to this resolution? No? It is adopted unanimously. Item 5.2, authorization to sign lease of the Heartbeat Community Farm. Whereas the Collective Alimentaire de Hudson is a nonprofit legal entity, whereas the collective operates a community farm offering a variety of ecological vegetables, fruits, flowers, and herbs, organic farming, learning opportunities, a social reintegration program, community events, and celebrations for the Hudson community known as Heartbeat Community Farm. Whereas the town has agreed to lease back a portion of the lot in question to allow the collective to use it to carry out its mission. This resolution is to enter into a lease agreement with Collectif Alimentaire de Hudson, whereby the town rents a portion of lot 1831726 of the Cadastre of Quebec, and to authorize the town clerk to finalize the lease according to the agreed terms and to sign the lease for and in the name of the town. So I believe everything is similar to what it was before, except that it is not for 3 years, it is for 5 years. And there was also a question with regards to a servitude that is existing on this lot, and where we're declaring that the servitude stands and we accept no responsibility for the servitude, right? C'est bon?
Oui.
Looking at my legal person to my right. En français.
J'y vais en français.
Vas-y.
5.2, autorisation de signature, bail de location de la ferme communautaire Betterève. Considérant que le collectif alimentaire d'Hudson est une personne morale sans but lucratif, considérant que le collectif exploite une ferme communautaire offrant une variété de légumes, fruits, fleurs, herbes écologiques, occasion d'apprentissage sur l'agriculture biologique, un programme de réinsertion sociale, des événements communautaires et des célébrations pour la communauté d'Hudson, qui est connue sous le nom de ferme Betterève. Considérant que la Ville accepte de louer à nouveau une partie du lot visé afin de permettre au collectif de l'utiliser dans le but de réaliser sa mission, la résolution a pour but de conclure un bail de location avec le collectif alimentaire d'Hudson par laquelle la Ville loue une partie du lot 1-831-726 du cadastre du Québec et d'autoriser la greffière à finaliser le bail selon les termes convenus et à signer le bail pour et au nom de la Ville.
Merci. Do I have a mover to my right? Do I have a mover to my left? Darren Legault, supported by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 5.3, tabling report on contractual management 2024. The members of council take note of the tabling of the 2024 report on contractual management.
5.3, dépôt du rapport sur la gestion contractuelle 2024. Donc, les membres du conseil prennent acte du dépôt du rapport de gestion contractuelle pour l'année 2024.
And this report has to be on our town's website. Is that the one, or is that the one that goes on the SEAO?
Plutôt sur le site de la Ville, je crois, mais je ne suis pas certaine qu'ils y sont déjà.
So it will show up on the town's website. There's also another I think it's maybe a monthly report that has to go on the SAO that was also part of the comments that the auditor notified the town about. Melissa, having been on maternity leave for several months, had some catching up to do when she arrived, so this is one of the things. Item 5.4, tabling minutes of correction, bylaw 767.1. In accordance with Section 92.1 of the Cities and Towns Act, the town clerk is tabling the minutes of correction concerning bylaw 767.1 attached hereto as Appendix A. Est-ce que tu voudrais donner les corrections, s'il te plaît?
Donc, ça concerne le règlement 767.1, pardon. Qui a été adopté pour mettre fin au RCI, donc il modifie différents règlements. Puis, dans le texte du règlement de zonage, il y avait quelques coquilles. Pardon. Donc, le mot, comme par exemple, le mot inondable n'était pas précédé du terme zone, mais on voit clairement que ça devait être l'expression zone inondable. Parfois, on référait à l'article 716.1 au lieu de l'article 716-1. Donc, ce sont des coquilles, des erreurs cléricales que j'ai pu modifier par procès-verbal de correction. Puis, je vois également que parfois, on référait au troisième alinéa alors qu'il n'existait pas de troisième alinéa. Donc, c'est nécessairement le deuxième. On comprend à la lecture que c'était le deuxième. Donc, ce sont les modifications qui ont été portées. Donc, 5.4, dépôt du procès-verbal de correction, règlement 767.1, conformément à l'article 92.1 de la loi sur les cités et villes, je procède au dépôt du procès-verbal de correction visant le règlement 767.1 qui est joint à l'annexe A.
So when they're just clerical corrections, as she's just described, for example, the word zone was missing in front of flood zones in the French section. Also, in terms of the numbers said 716.1, but should have been 716-1. And then there was a reference to the third paragraph, but it should have been the second paragraph. So when it's minor corrections like that, there's permission rather than to readopt the bylaw to simply issue, as she has done, a correction of the minutes. So these were the zoning bylaws that were changed in replacement to the RCI, and this will be annexed to the meeting minutes when they will be adopted next month. Section 6, Human Resources. Item 6.1, Transaction and Release. Whereas discussions have taken place between the Interim Director General and Employee 1033, whereas the parties have agreed to mutually set out in writing the terms and conditions of termination of employment for Employee 1033, whereas the parties have agreed to effectively terminate employment as of March 31st of 2025. This resolution is to approve the proposed transaction and release concerning the termination of employment of employee 1033 in accordance with the agreed terms and condition, and that the Interim Director General be hereby mandated to finalize the terms and conditions of the transaction and release and to sign for and on behalf of the town.
6.1, Transactions et quittances. Considérant les discussions intervenues entre le directeur général par intérim et l'employé 1033, considérant que les parties ont convenu de consigner mutuellement par écrit les modalités de cession d'emploi de l'employé 1033, considérant que les parties se sont entendues pour mettre fin à l'emploi de manière effective en date du 31 mars 2025, la résolution vise à approuver le projet de transaction quittance concernant la fin d'emploi de l'employé 1033 selon les modalités convenues et que le directeur général par intérim soit mandaté par les présentes à finaliser les modalités prévues à la transaction et quittance et à signer pour et au nom de la Ville.
Merci. Do I have a mover to my right? Doug Smith, supported by Darren Legault. Are there any rejections, objections? There is one. It is carried by majority. Item 6.2, awarding of contract, recruitment services, general management. Whereas the position of Director General will be vacant as of March 31 of 2025, whereas the town wishes to fill this position for the efficient management of the town's operation, this resolution is to mandate the firm Talenco Inc. to fill the position of Director General in the amount of $35,000 before taxes in accordance with the offer of service received on March 4th of 2025.
6.2, octroi de contrat, service de recrutement à la direction générale. Considérant que le poste de directeur général sera dépourvu de son titulaire à compter du 31 mars 2025, considérant que la Ville désire pourvoir ce poste pour le bon fonctionnement des opérations de la Ville, la résolution a pour but de mandater la firme Talenco Inc. pour le recrutement au poste de directeur général pour un montant de 35 000 $ avant taxe, le tout conformément à l'offre de service reçue le 4 mars 2025.
Merci. Dans la partie qui n'est pas surlignée, on parle des tests psychométriques qui sont inclus. Whereas the town has met with some recruitment firms and the services of one of these firms is more complete and meets the imminent needs to fill the position, namely recruitment and headhunting, pre-selection and complete psychometric evaluation.
Donc, ça devra être inclus, donc exclu, donc je les retire.
Tu vas le retirer?
Je vais le retirer.
Merci. This is a conversation that we had, so we're all aware. All right, do I have a mover to my right? Do I have a mover to my left? Darren Legault, supported by Reed Thompson. Thank you. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Section 7, Culture and Recreation. Item 7.1. Grants to Music Festival, to Hudson Music Festival, and to Hudson Creative Hub and AL. Whereas Council has evaluated the request for financial support from the Hudson Festival, whereas Council has evaluated the request for financial support from the Hudson Creative Hub, whereas Council must approve the payment of an honorarium for which Hudson Forest Play acted as an administrative intermediary. This resolution is to approve the financial contribution of $8,500 to the Hudson Musical Festival and a maximum financial contribution of $1,500 after providing proof of insurance, and to grant a financial contribution in the amount of $10,000 to the Hudson Creative Hub, and to approve the payment of an amount of $1,250 to Hudson Forest Play exclusively for the purpose of granting an honorarium that this amount does not constitute financial support to Hudson Forest Play, but rather an administrative mechanism to facilitate a transaction. And I will explain. Yeah, no. So it is lovely to invite elders from our Mohawk communities, but they do not provide receipts. And so in looking for a way to municipalize this transaction, I looked around and asked, how is this usually done? And I was explained that it usually goes through a nonprofit group. And in this case, the Hudson Forest Play volunteered to do so and wrote it very clearly in the receipt that they produced for the town, that They were just there to transfer the money into the hands of the Mohawk elder who came for the workshop on land acknowledgements. So it's a bit awkward. It certainly makes it look as though we're supporting the Hudson Forest Play and giving them a contribution, but it actually went directly to the elder. En français.
7.1. Octroi d'une subvention au Festival de musique de Hudson et au Centre créatif Hudson et autres. Considérant que le Conseil a évalué la demande d'appui financier au Festival de musique de Hudson, considérant que le Conseil a évalué la demande d'appui financier du Centre créatif Hudson, et considérant que le Conseil doit procéder à l'approbation d'un honorarium versé pour lequel Hudson Forest Play a agi à titre d'intermédiaire administratif, la résolution vise à approuver la contribution financière de 8 500 $ au Festival de musique d'Hudson, ainsi qu'une contribution financière maximale de 1 500 $ après avoir fourni une preuve d'assurance, d'approuver une subvention au montant de 10 000 $ au Centre créatif Hudson et d'approuver le versement d'un montant de 1 250 $ à Hudson Forest Play exclusivement aux fins du versement d'un honorarium, que cette somme ne constitue pas un soutien financier à Hudson Forest Play, mais un mécanisme administratif facilitant une transaction.
Merci beaucoup. Do I have a mover to my right? No? Mover to my left. Darren Legault, supported by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Section 8, Public Works. 8.1, Tech 2019 to 2024 Final Work Program with corrections. Whereas the MAMASH, so that's the Ministry of Municipal Affairs, requested on February 7th of 2025 a correction to the terminology used in the programming, which requires a new resolution. This resolution is that the Town of Hudson approves the contents and authorizes the submission to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing of the Program of Work version 2 as modified.
8.1, TECQ 2019-2024, programmation des travaux, finale avec modification, considérant que le MAMASH a demandé le 7 février 2025 une correction à la terminologie utilisée dans la programmation, ce qui nécessite une nouvelle résolution. La résolution a pour but à ce que la Ville d'Hudson approuve le contenu et autorise l'envoi au ministère des Affaires municipales et de l'Habitation la programmation de travaux version 2 telle que modifiée.
Merci. Do I have a mover to my right? Do I have a mover to my left? Mark Gray, supported by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 8.2, awarding of contract AO-2025-02-TP-janitorial services. Whereas the janitorial services contract expires on April 15th of 2025, whereas the awarding of this contract must be done through a call for tenders, whereas 8 bids were received, this resolution is to award to Service d'Entretien Valadrie, Inc., lowest conforming bidder, the contract for janitorial services for an amount of $96,979.55 before taxes.
8.2, octroi de contrat AO 2025-02-TP, service de conciergerie, considérant que le contrat de service de conciergerie arrive à échéance le 15 avril 2025, considérant que l'octroi de ce contrat doit se faire au terme d'un processus d'appel d'offres, considérant que 8 soumissions ont été reçues, la résolution a pour but d'octroyer à Service d'entretien Valadrie, Inc., le plus bas soumissionnaire conforme, le contrat pour des services de conciergerie pour un montant de 96 979,55 avant taxes.
Merci. Do I have a mover to my right? Do I have a mover to my left? Mark Gray, supported by Reed Thompson. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand.
Excuse me, just a comment, and I love multiple bids, as we all know. But, you know, to go from $97,000 to $287,000 and everything in between, I really got to wonder how the tender document is put together, but...
Well, there are 8, and quite a few of them resemble each other, right? They're very close.
Yeah, I'm just saying it's a huge variance, and I'm somewhat confused by such a, but that's fine.
The actual amount is close to what we usually pay when we go out to tender, so I think in that sense, allez-y.
Ce qui peut expliquer les écarts, c'est qu'il y en a plusieurs qui n'ont pas fait la visite des lieux. Fait qu'ils ont, je pense qu'ils ont fait une soumission avec les informations. Puis en général, c'est les montants d'ailleurs les plus élevés.
So Martin's extra information was that several of the tender applicants did not visit the place, so they probably weren't aware. They just went with the information that they had, but weren't aware of the size or of the nature of the work, which might explain the great discrepancy between at least the second and last one and the last one. There's 100,000 right there.
Again,
Yeah.
this sort of flies against many things. If they don't even come to look at what they're bidding on, why do we even accept their tender
Well,
legally?
So Melissa is going to answer for you.
Le soumissionnaire conforme a fait la visite.
donc, nous aurions exclu les gens qui ne l'ont pas fait, mais on vous a relaté ici les prix obtenus. Mais on a fait l'exercice de valider est-ce qu'ils sont conformes de n'avoir ou de ne pas avoir fait la visite. C'était une visite obligatoire.
So the answer of Melissa was that they did validate which came and which didn't. It was an obligatory visit, and the lowest conforming bidder did come and did visit, so therefore was compliant. Ça vous va? Good. Are there any objections to this resolution? There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 8.3, awarding of contract AO-2025-03-TP, streets cleaning. Whereas the town requires road cleaning services for street sweeper with mechanical broom, whereas the awarding of this contract must be done through a call for tenders, whereas the following bids were received, and there were three. Entretien GR Villeneuve Inc. for $261,419.66. Ça, c'est pour plus qu'une année, hein, si je me souviens bien.
Oui.
Oui,
C'était
c'est bien.
Villeneuve. Villeneuve.
C'est pour 2 ans?
Je ne me souviens pas exactement.
We went through this. I could find it in my notes. The other one was les entreprises Miroir, $318,517.86, and Baletech plus $654,264, because that would be an awful lot for 1 year. This resolution is to award to Entretien GR Villeneuve Inc., lowest conforming bidder, the contract for street sweeping for an amount of $261,419.66 before taxes. And in my notes, vas-y, je te laisse lire en français. puis j'ai trouvé mes notes.
8.3, octroi de contrat AO 2025-03-TP, balayage de rue. Considérant que la Ville requiert les services de nettoyage de chaussée avec balai mécanique, considérant que l'octroi de ce contrat doit se faire au terme d'un processus d'appel d'offres, considérant que les soumissions suivantes ont été reçues. Donc, Entretien JR Villeneuve Inc. pour 261 419,66. Les entreprises Miroir Inc. 318 517,86. Et Baletech Plus 654 264 $. Donc, la résolution vise à octroyer à Entretien JR Villeneuve Inc., plus bas soumissionnaire conforme, le contrat de service de balayage de rue pour un montant de 261 419,66 avant taxes.
Merci. So part of the expense here is that the Ministry of Environment has changed their regulations over the year, where now the sand and whatever they pick up off the road can no longer be thrown in the same way, or disposed, thank you, of just any way. It actually has to be brought to a place because it's considered contaminated material. So that is the extra cost. It wasn't always this expensive. And in my notes, it doesn't say if it's for more than 1 year, but it's for 3 years. Okay, so split over 3 years. Do I have a mover to my left? Yes?
So in other words, at 261, let's call it 300. We'll call it 300,000, so it's $100,000 per year.
Correct.
Ah oui?
Puis ça, je pense qu'il doit montrer son kilométrage, non? C'est en fonction, c'est des heures. So it's related to the number of hours, so they actually have to show proof of hours spent.
And if we're not happy, we just have to call the
Well, if
town
we
and
want to
say,
do it again, you know, sometimes we'll have it done, we time it for the painting of the lines, but sometimes we'll do it for an event when we want the streets to look particularly tidy. But yes, it is an expense, and it's mostly the disposal of the material that is expensive. So, mover to my right?
do we know when they'll start this year? Because like,
April usually. On commence quand? Bientôt?
D'après moi, c'est avril.
As soon as the snow is mostly gone.
Dès que la neige a quitté, on commence. Fait que ça peut aller encore. Des fois, ça va jusqu'à la mi-avril, là, début avril, mi-avril.
Good. Are you proposing?
Yes.
Doug Smith, seconded by, to my left, Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. 8.4, renewal of contract AO-2023-01 TP, street line painting. Whereas Resolution R 2023-03-60, by which Council awarded a contract for street line painting in the amount of $36,329.25 for a one-year period. Whereas Resolution R 2024-08-227, by which Council renewed the contract for the year 2024 for an amount of $38,255.38 before taxes. Whereas additional roadway marking are required for 2025, and I think you'd mentioned it was for the elevated crosswalk, for example. This resolution is to renew the contract for a street line painting for Marquage et Traçage du Québec, Inc., for an additional one-year period from April 15th, 2025, for an amount of $47,741.55 before taxes.
8.4, renouvellement de contrat, marquage de chaussée AO 2023-01 TP, considérant la résolution R 2023-03-60 par laquelle le Conseil a octroyé un contrat pour le marquage des lignes de rue au montant de 36 329,25 pour une période d'un an, considérant la résolution R 2024-08-227 par laquelle le Conseil a renouvelé le contrat pour l'année 2024 pour un montant de 38 255,38 avant taxes, considérant que des marquages supplémentaires sur la chaussée sont requis pour 2025. La résolution vise à renouveler le contrat de marquage de lignes de rue avec l'entreprise Marquage et Traçage du Québec, Inc., pour une période additionnelle d'un an à compter du 15 avril 2025 pour un montant de 47 741,55 avant taxes.
Merci. Do I have a mover to my right? Mover to my left? Reed Thompson, seconded by Darren Legault. Are there any objections to my right? There are none. It is carried unanimously. Section 9, Public Safety, 9.1, 2024 Annual Activity Report for the MRCVS Fire Safety Cover Plan Activities. Whereas Section 35 of the Fire Safety Act prescribes the obligation for the local authority responsible for the implementation of the measures stipulated in the Fire Safety Plan to forward to the Minister of Public Security within 3 months of the end of its fiscal year a report of activities for the previous fiscal year and its plans for the new year. This resolution is to acknowledge the 2024 annual report of the Fire Safety Cover Plan.
9.1, rapport annuel d'activité 2024 du schéma de couverture de risque de la MRC Vaudreuil-Soulanges. Considérant que l'article 35 de la loi sur la sécurité incendie prescrit l'obligation pour toute autorité locale chargée de l'application des mesures prévues au schéma de couverture de risque en matière de sécurité incendie de transmettre au ministre de la Sécurité publique dans les 3 mois de la fin de son année financière un rapport d'activité pour l'exercice précédent et ses projets pour la nouvelle année. La résolution a donc pour objectif de prendre acte du rapport annuel 2024 du schéma de couverture de risque en matière de sécurité incendie.
Merci. Do I have a mover to my left? Reed Thompson, seconded by Darren Legault. Are there any objections? There are none. It is carried unanimously. Section 10, Bylaws, Item 10.1, Bylaw 774.1-2025, amending Bylaw 774-2024, decreeing the taxation for the 2025 fiscal year. Adoption. Whereas there have been no changes to the proposed bylaw tabled on February 3rd of 2025, this resolution is to adopt Bylaw 774.1-2025, amending Bylaw 774-2024, decreeing the taxation for the 2025 fiscal year. This was, c'était les ajustements des seuils, hein? So the government had changed les seuils, the amount at which the welcome tax was applied. So there's different sections or segments, and they had changed what that number was. And since we had already started the adoption of our taxation, we'd had to start again. En français.
10.1, adoption règlement 774.1-2025, modifiant le règlement 774-2024, décrétant l'imposition des taxes pour l'exercice financier 2025. Considérant que le présent règlement ne comporte aucune modification au projet déposé le 3 février 2025, la résolution a pour but d'adopter le règlement 774.1-2025, modifiant le règlement 774-2024, décrétant l'imposition des taxes pour l'exercice financier 2025, qui a pour but d'ajuster les seuils d'imposition du droit de mutation conformément au seuil provincial.
Merci. Do I have a mover to my right? Do I have a mover to my left? Reed Thompson, supported by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 10.2, Bylaw 559.2-2025, to further amend Bylaw 559 regarding garage sales and temporary sales, RMH 299. This is for adoption. Whereas there have been no changes to the proposed bylaw tabled on February 3rd of 2025, this resolution is to adopt Bylaw 559.2-2025 to further amend Bylaw 559 regarding garage sales and temporary sales of RMH 299. Et rappelle-moi, we removed the requirement for
a permit.
For permits.
And the garage sale must occur on 4 dates or 4 weekends
Between May and June?
May, June, and then September.
Okay.
That's pretty much it.
So it was to reduce administrative charge, but also to encourage people to reuse and not throw out as many things. But, donc, merci. Vas-y en français.
J'y vais en français. 10.2, adoption, règlement 559.2-2025, visant à modifier de nouveau le règlement 559 concernant les ventes de garage et ventes temporaires, RMH 299. Considérant que le présent règlement ne comporte aucune modification au projet déposé le 3 février 2025, la résolution vise à adopter le règlement 559.2-2025, visant à modifier de nouveau le règlement 559 concernant les ventes de garage et les ventes temporaires afin d'éliminer l'obligation d'obtenir un permis. Les ventes de garage se tiendront à date fixe 4 fois dans la période printemps-été.
So the dates are in this bylaw, and it is on National Patriots' Day and the Saturday and Sunday preceding that day, the first Saturday in June and the Sunday following that day, on Labor Day and the Saturday and Sunday preceding that day, and the last Saturday in September and Sunday following that day. Donc, merci. Did we have, it's a notice of motion, so you only need, is for adoption?
Yes.
Yes, you need a mover. Do I have a mover? Doug Smith, supported by Darren Legault. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Item 10.3, Bylaw 526.17-2025, amending zoning bylaw 526, amendments to various provisions, notice of motion, and tabling of the draft. I will need a councillor to give notice of motion that he would move or cause to be moved at a subsequent session of the council the adoption of bylaw 526.17-2025. The purpose of this bylaw is to amend the zoning bylaw in order to, among other things, adjust the threshold for the contribution for park purposes in case of intensification of existing activities, adjusting the definition of shoreline, adjust fines for tree cutting, and add the possibility for the municipal council to exempt certain buildings permit applications from the contribution for parks, playgrounds, and natural areas, and we'll explain. So a group of commercial owners came to us before the end of the RCI period and asked that we raise the intensification level from 2 to 5 units so that there would be no requirement for contribution of parks if they were to add 2 or 3 units to their commercial building. So now the threshold has been increased to 5 units. So 5 units and up, there will be park contribution required. And this met their, they were reasonably comfortable with this. It was an allègement. It was a release or a lightening of our requirements. The others, with regards to the fines on tree cutting, so this is to match the government's fines that have changed yet again. So we are now matching what is in the provincial law that changed recently. And also the adding of the possibility for municipal council to exempt certain building permit applications from the contributions is, for example, in the case of affordable housing, it would be nice to have the opportunity for council to waive that requirement for parks contribution, but again, it's discretionary, so they may or they may not, but this at least gives them the possibility to exempt if they choose so. En français.
10.3, avis de motion et dépôt du projet, règlement 526.17-2025 visant à modifier le règlement de zonage 526 pour modification de diverses dispositions. Donc, un conseiller donne avis de motion de son intention de soumettre pour adoption le projet de règlement 526.17-2025 qui a pour objet d'apporter des modifications au règlement de zonage afin notamment d'ajuster le seuil pour la contribution pour fin de parc, dans les cas d'intensification des activités existantes, d'ajuster la définition de rive, d'ajuster les amendes pour l'abattage d'arbres et d'ajouter la possibilité pour le conseil municipal d'exempter certaines demandes de permis de construction de la contribution pour fin de parc, terrain de jeu et espaces naturels.
Merci. Do I have a councillor? Reid Thompson. All right, item 10.4, bylaw 526.17-2025, amending zoning bylaw 526, amendments to various provisions, adoption of the draft. So essentially, this is the same zoning bylaw that we just described. This resolution is that the draft of bylaw 526.17-2025, amending zoning bylaw 526, amendments to various provisions be adopted, and that the required public consultation be held on March 24th of 2025 at 7 p.m. at the Stephen F. Charr Community Center located here at 394 Main. There is a copy, or there was. If there are none left, you can have my copy, but it will be online. Do take a look. It is a draft, and if you have any comments on how to improve it or items that you don't understand, the best time would be to come to the public consultation and to have your voice heard or ask your questions. Our technical person will be there to answer you and any other items that pertaining to this bylaw change. En français.
10.4, adoption du projet, règlement 526.17-2025 avisant à modifier le règlement de zonage 526, modification de diverses dispositions. La résolution a pour but à ce que le projet de règlement 526.17-2025 soit adopté et que l'Assemblée publique de consultation qui est requise soit tenue le 24 mars 2025 à 19h, ici au Centre communautaire Stephen F. Charr, au 394 rue Maine.
Merci. Do I have a mover to my right? Doug Smith, seconded to my left by Mark Gray. Are there any objections to this resolution? Please raise your hand. There are none. It is carried unanimously. Is there any new business under Section 11? There is none, so I open the second question period, and I will alternate between the room and the screen.
Sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jim.
Hey, good evening, everybody. There's a couple of things that were cryptic. I apologize for asking two
go ahead.
questions, but I wasn't here last month, so could I buy
Two
on that?
questions, two.
Okay, all right. Number 6.1 and 6.2, there was some, I found that cryptic. I didn't quite understand that. I presume, and I'm filling in the blanks here, this is concerning the former Director General's final quittance, and we are now on the search for another Director General.
Correct,
That's correct?
correct.
Okay. And there was a transaction. There was an agreement. That,
Correct.
Correct. So it was a buyout.
Well, this evening is to authorize that
Okay.
agreement.
Okay. And okay, that's good. That kind of dovetails with what I figured. The second part of it, the second question I had is concerning 10.1. That's the 774-1 2025. My understanding of your explanation and the discussion here that I'm reading in the draft is that most of the houses in Hudson, or most of the units, let's call them the doors, most of the doors in Hudson are going to be taxed at the maximum 3%. Is that a fair assumption?
Tu veux expliquer?
Oui. La tranche qui est de 0 à 61 000 sera taxée à 0,5. Ensuite de ça, de 61 000 à 307 sera imposé 1 de 307 à 500 000, 1,5 puis le montant qui sera au-dessus de 500 000, disons que la maison vaut 550, il y aura seulement 50 000 qui sera taxé à 3
C'est pas des tranches, c'est la valeur de chaque transaction.
Non.
Ouais, on le décortique.
OK, c'est pas un pourcentage au-dessus de quelque
Non,
chose. OK,
chaque tranche. Donc, si quelqu'un a une maison qui vaut 550, il va avoir un 0,5 d'appliqué sur une certaine portion, 1 sur l'autre portion, 1,5 puis 3
So I'll
Wow.
explain it in English. So the example was on a house of 550,000. The question was, because it is over 500,000, would it be taxed or the transaction be taxed at a full 3%? And the answer is no. It starts with the first tranche or section of the amount. So the first 61,500 is taxed at 0.5%. Then the portion between 61,500 and 307,800 is taxed at 1%. And then the next slice between 307,800 and 500,000 is taxed at 1.5%. Anything over the 500,000 value is then taxed at 3%. So only that 50,000 is at 3%.
right. And you inferred that we have no choice in this. This is a government decree.
The government sets those slices. I think we have some ability to adjust, and I don't remember what it was that we could adjust.
Ouais, exactement.
But les tranches, those numbers are set. It's more in the percentage, I think. Is that it?
Oui, exactement.
So if the federal government goes ahead, as Mark Carney has suggested, and reducing the welcome tax, asking municipalities across Canada to reduce the welcome tax on new properties, first-time buyers,
Sure.
we have no choice but to tax at this level.
We'll have to see what they come forward with as a proposal. But as you remember, this is the government helping municipalities diversifying their income. So you said it's for first-time home buyers. There might be a program where the government would be subsidizing that loss of revenue. But we'll see. We'll see what comes forward.
Good, thank you.
You're welcome. Are there any questions online? I haven't seen a single hand. Est-ce que les mains fonctionnent? Can someone put a hand up and then drop it if you don't want to ask a question, just so I can make sure that it's working? There's one. There's two. Thank you. Okay. If you don't want to ask a question, you can drop them. Great. Perfect. Thank you. Go ahead.
I don't have a question. It's just on behalf of everyone at the Hudson Creative Hub, I really want to thank Council for supporting us. You're allowing us to continue the dream of our wonderful founder, Cam Gentile, to promote and to nurture arts and culture in Hudson. And I hope we'll make everybody really happy with what you have
Thank you, Helen.
given
It's
us.
a very,
Thank you.
very special place and a very, very special legacy, and we wish you all the strength and ability to continue. So we look forward to hearing more from you and seeing it increase in success.
Blossom and grow.
Exactly.
We're nurturing it at this moment in time.
Exactly.
We're working very hard to find a way to make it better yet for everyone in our
The
town.
community
Thank
is
you very
here.
much,
Yep.
really.
Thank you, Helen.
Hi again.
Hi, Steve.
With respect to point 4.2, we now have a full-time treasurer in place, working.
She started
Can
last
you-
week, correct?
Can you tell me what exactly the duties are of the financial consultant?
So this person, as we had established on hiring her, is there to help in the transition. He is the one that worked on the action plan, and he will be there as much as she needs him to be there. And perhaps it's going to be very little, and perhaps it will be
So
a little bit more.
so he's training her then?
It's
I
not
thought
so
she
much
was fully
training.
qualified.
He's there serving as a bridge.
I thought she was fully qualified.
She is.
Normally, you don't have that kind of a transition and you hire a consultant.
I think we want to give this person the best chance to succeed, and I think this is the best way to support her in her new role.
I don't understand how come every time we hire supposedly a full qualified accountant who thinks out of the box, you need to hire a consultant to bring them up to snuff. Maybe if you tried to hire a CPA, it would work out better.
You have been
There have
heard.
been offers
Thank you
to
very
help.
much. You have been heard.
Hi there. My name is Ken Krager of 88 Crescent. I have a question regarding the town septic system or sewage system and the extension of that system if there's a process. My street runs from Main to 73 Crescent is on the town system, and from then on we're still on septic systems, our regular.
You're on the upper portion?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
So just curious if there's a means or a mandate to extend those systems through the town?
Not at this time.
Okay, so my system may never be updated? I may still remain on my septic system for years and years to come?
It is possible, but again, whenever we extend the sewage, each and every neighbor needs to agree to the extension, and it becomes a sectorial bylaw, and the residents end up paying for that extension. So it's not for everybody's pocketbook. Some
So
can,
it's not absorbed through the town, it's becomes part of the residents of that street to pay for
Correct.
that system? And was that done when it was initially done in the town? All individual houses paid for that system?
Those who are on that system pay for the system, whether they're connected or not, but have the capacity to connect, and those who cannot connect or don't have access to it don't pay for it. And anytime there is an extension to the service, then that area pays for their extension.
So is there a process to start that on my street, or?
It's always good to start with the neighbors to make sure that there is adherence on their part, and then we would do an evaluation, an assessment on how much it would represent, so it's an estimate.
Okay.
And, c'est bien ça? Oui. And then we would see if we move forward. Kiltivan is an example where they had a system that came with their development, needed some improvements that were done through the town, so they have a separate sectorial bylaw. There's another one, I forget the name of the street, but there's another section where they've increased. And I would say that there's some areas where in terms of capacity to drain, that we're looking into those areas as priorities, but it's still sectorial.
Okay, so if there's 10 houses and only 5 people wanted it, and we agreed
It can only go to 5, yeah, you hope that they're sequential.
But that's what I mean, those 5 residents would then pay for the entire system to run up the street?
Sometimes it's not that bad a deal because you're close to a main, but if you have to drive a main to be able to serve your 5, it might not be so worth your while.
Right, but it already ends at the school, so it must be easily extendable from our place.
Perhaps.
Okay, all right, thank you.
You're welcome. Monsieur Dionne.
Oui, bonjour. Question concernant 8.3. On n'a pas dit c'était pour combien de temps? 261 000 pour le balayage des rues. C'est-tu une année? C'est-tu 2 ans?
Le balayage de rue, c'est pour 3 ans.
J'aimerais qu'à l'avenir, quand on parle de contrat, qu'on prenne l'opportunité pour dire c'est 1 an, 2 ans ou 3 ans.
Mais j'avais posé la question et ça m'a été confirmé à l'adoption. Mais vous avez raison, ça peut être inclus dans la résolution.
Des fois, on le fait, mais d'autres fois, c'est pas mentionné.
Je ne vous ai pas entendu, pardon?
Des fois, vous avez mentionné quand c'est un contrat d'1 an ou 2 ans, mais ici, ça n'a pas été dit.
D'accord.
Relativement à ça, l'année dernière,
On va l'ajouter, Madame la mairesse, le 3 ans à la résolution.
Parfait, merci.
l'année dernière, le balayage de rue était assez ordinaire. Sous notre rue, ils sont passés, puis après avoir passé, j'avais une belle ligne de sable.
Vous
Sur
êtes
toute-
Birch Hill, hein?
Birch Hill.
Oui.
Je pense que 260 000 pour passer le balai,
Mais
On
des fois, il
devrait
doit
s-
passer 2 fois.
on devrait s'assurer que c'est bien fait. Dernier commentaire, à 10.3, ou 10.4, je ne me rappelle plus, là, mais la question de donner au conseil de ville une certaine capacité de laisser tomber les contributions pour les parcs. J'étais là quand il y a eu les débats sur la mise en place de ça. C'est pas tout le monde qui était d'accord. Moi, je n'avais pas vraiment d'opinion sur ça. Mais ça a été adopté. Et là, une année plus tard, on dit, bien, le conseil pourra suspendre ou donner un waiver.
Mais c'est cas par cas, puis c'est des cas bien spécifiques. Le conseil aura à justifier son choix.
J'aimerais mieux qu'on ait des conditions écrites maintenant plutôt qu'à faire du cas par cas, favoritisme potentiellement dans le temps. Et je
On
pense-
s'est dit que peut-être qu'il y aurait un cas qu'on n'a pas encore réfléchi, qui pourrait être important. On voulait se donner un peu de latitude, mais on a eu cette discussion aussi, puis on n'est pas en désaccord avec votre point
Merci.
de vue. Bienvenue. On va y réfléchir, mais on a une période de consultation publique, donc veuillez revenir et nous partager le commentaire. Yes, please go
Good
ahead.
evening.
Good evening.
This is not an advertisement, so I will start. The MF Orchestra
Yeah.
is a group of approximately 15 musicians, which plays swing music, Latin American music, dance music, jump and bounce music from the 20s to the 60s, let's say.
How many are you?
15.
15, well done.
And as a result of the council's awarding of a subsidy last month, we'd like to say thank you. And it successfully gave us the opportunity to negotiate rehearsal space up until November.
Oh,
So
that's
thank you
great.
very much.
So where are you rehearsing?
I can't say that.
Oh, okay. Well, we wish you great success.
And when we are ready, we'll be happy to show this city what we can do.
That'd be lots of fun. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Yeah.
Let me add, I'm one of the musicians playing I'm one of the musicians with the group
thank
playing
you.
saxophone in this case.
Okay.
I do have a question on 8.4, which is the street line painting. It's a
Yes.
one-year contract?
De quel contrat on parle?
Le marquage de rue.
How long does it take to do the street line painting?
It's usually done over 2 separate times because it's different colors, but different.
So-
Ça prend combien de temps? It's a question
So
of
like,
hours.
there's 2 sessions, let's say a week or 10 days?
Yeah.
And then maybe 6 months later, another week or 10
It
days?
depends. Yeah, yeah.
Why
They
is
do
that?
all the crosswalks. You know, it's not the same paint. Some are.
I don't understand the need for a yearly contract as opposed to a period of 2 weeks to do it here, 2 weeks to do it there, and it's all done.
Some really wear out from the sand and the salt, right? So we need to redo them.
Well,
The stop
you know,
signs
I'm
particularly.
on camera and I see it wear out, yes.
Yeah, yeah. Have you tried the one near is it Thompson Park? The elevated crosswalk that doesn't have any line on it is a bit of a surprise if you're not expecting it.
No, I was just surprised that at a period called for a year for street cleaning, it's like, didn't seem to make sense to me. That's all.
I think there had been efforts in the past to spread them a little bit more, and then we were having a lot of complaints of people who were driving right through the stop signs. So I think, gotta be safe, gotta keep it there. Bon. There were no questions online, and I believe that we will then complete the evening. Yeah, go ahead. You move to adjourn, and who seconds to adjourn? Reed Thompson, and so the meeting is adjourned at 8:38 p.m. Merci beaucoup. Thank you, everyone. I hope to see you at the parade on Saturday.